пластмассовый. Так, both hemispheres separating by means longitudinal groove, sulcus longitudinalis cerebri, and behind we have sulcus transversus cerebri, which separates hemisphere from the cerebellum. But this sulcus longitudinalis cerebri reaches in front delimited by lamina terminalis. Lamina terminalis, from which starts rostrum of the corpus callosum. Lamina terminalis here delimited this longitudinal groove between two hemispheres. They are not completely separated from each other. Between both hemispheres we have what body? The biggest, largest commissural body. It is corpus callosum. What parts of corpus callosum from lamina terminalis starting here? We have rostrum, gineo, knee, gineo, genu, truncus, trunk, and splenium. Rostrum, genu, truncus, splenium, and the groove sulcus corporis callosi, which separates this body, the largest commissural body which communicates both hemispheres. On each hemisphere we have anterior pole, frontal pole, posterior, more sharp pole, occipital, and the temporal pole. We have superior margin, inferior medial, inferior lateral margin. We have three surfaces of hemisphere: superolateral surface, medial surface, inferior surface. On superolateral surface, now we'll describe from this surface about weight. I've given during the lecture. Here on superolateral surface we can see this primary constant groove, sulcus centralis rolandi. Yeah? In front, what lobe we have? The frontal lobe. Behind, parietal. Sulcus parieto-occipitalis, if you will continue on this surface, will delimit it. Parietal from occipital. This is occipital lobe. When you will take preparation, turn your attention the sulcus lateralis, which separates the frontal lobe. In front is opened by what fossa here we have? Fossa lateralis silvi. It must be faced forward. Fossa lateralis on this groove, open forward. The most prominent is frontal lobe, and most sharp is occipital. The fifth lobe lies in the thickness of the sulcus lateralis. What lobe? Insula. Here you can see insula. This is insula. Sulcus circularis insulae, gyrus breve, gyrus longus, and limen insulae. You can find inside 5 lobes. On superolateral surface, we'll describe in frontal lobe sulcus centralis, sulcus frontalis superior, frontalis inferior. Between them, gyrus frontalis superior, medius inferior. From the sulcus lateralis, we have 2 ramus ascendens and ramus anterior, and ascendens, of course, and posterior. Rise 3 sulci, which divides the inferior frontal into the pars orbitalis, pars triangularis, and pars opercularis. This part of the frontal parietal, they together form operculum frontoparietale, and this is operculum temporale. If you will open this, you can inside find insula, the covering part of the insula. Now we'll describe what cortical center lie in gyrus precentralis and lobulus paracentralis. Cortical motor center. With head down position, here projected all our body, our foot, leg, trunk, upper limb, head, projected about here. With head down position, projected here. Motor. All our conscious motor movements, for example, conscious stand-up movement, starts from this cortex. The 5th layer of the cortex here contains giant pyramidal cells, bed cells. From these pyramidal cells starts pyramidal conscious movement, which descends until motor neurons of the spinal cord and via axons through the spinal nerve reach the muscle. This motor cortical center lie in gyrus precentralis and lobulus paracentralis. Muscles of the trunk, some organs, tongue, pharynx, larynx, they have both centers in both
Marina!
Так.
Marina!
In gyrus
Give
frontalis medius, in premotor, this is premotor area.
Примото.
Here we
Есть
have
мотор. Так, а как это? А первичное? Палата.
Anatoly Ivанович, don't disturb me, please. Here, premotor area, we have center of writing, writing center. This row of the center causes agraphia and coordinating movements of the head and neck and eyes in opposite side, which also lies in premotor area. In inferior frontal gyrus, in opercular part, we have speech articulation center, motor aphasia that causes this row of dysfunction of this center. Broca center, speech motor center, and it is asymmetric. For right-hand man, it lies in left hemisphere. For left-hand man, in right hemisphere. The parietal lobe. Here we have sulcus discentralis. Yes, parallel go sulcus postcentralis. Between them, gyrus postcentralis. This is sulcus intraparietalis. Intraparietal groove separates this lobe from this lobe. This is lobulus parietalis superior. This is lobulus parietalis inferior. In inferior parietal lobulus, we have two gyri. Gyrus supramarginalis. You will go along the sylvian lateral groove and end it, and surround it supramarginal by supramarginal gyrus. Gyrus supramarginalis. And along the superior sulcus temporalis superior, in temporal lobe we have sulcus temporalis superior, sulcus temporalis inferior. Temporalis superior interrupted, temporalis inferior. Between them we have gyrus temporalis superior, medius inferior. No? And if we'll go, here is better. This is gyrus supramarginalis, and along posterior end of the sulcus temporalis superior, this is gyrus, this supramarginalis, this is angularis, supramarginalis and angularis. What cortical centers are located? This intraparietalis, superior parietal, inferior. In inferior we have this gyrus and this gyrus. Inferior parietal. Gyrus postcentralis. Here it even interrupted, different shape. Gyrus postcentralis. Here exact projection of all our peripheral receptors here we have, but sensory. Here lies the sensory cortex, so-called sensory cortex, sensory homunculus here projected, together with superior parietal lobule, sensory cortical center or cortical end of sensory analyzer here, lie area 3, 5, 7, from first to third, first, second, third, and 5, 7 in superior parietal lobule. The pain, touch, sensation, temperature, pressure, and specific type of sensation which is called stereognosis. With closed eyes you can touch and you can feel the shape of the subjects. It is called stereognosis, specific type of sensitivity. Touch sensitivity. Projected in gyrus postcentralis and lobulus parietalis superior, stereognosis center. In gyrus supramarginalis and in gyrus angularis, we have also cortical center. Supramarginalis center of praxis. Along all your practical life, you receive some very complicated compound movements. For example, musician can play the pointer piano, can draw, surgeon can make operation. All these compound, very complicated practical movements which receive during practical life. The center control, this center, praxis center, control all these movements. Apraxia on this row of the center, maybe develop apraxia. And near the visual cortical center, we have the secondary. We have primary visual center. It is secondary visual center. It is better visible here. Gyrus supraangularis, this gyrus supraangularis, on continuation of sulcus temporalis superior in gyrus angularis. Да? No supraangularis, gyrus angularis it is called. Gyrus angularis. Here we have our center of reading. You can read and understand the text. Alexia causes in the image of the center, maybe develop alexia. Read but don't understand. What do you read? Center of reading, sensory center. We have primary visual center, which is located on medial surface in sulcus calcarinus on both sides. This is secondary visual center in gyrus angularis, reading center. Auditory center, no, in parietal finish. In occipital lobe, we have only one, sulcus occipitalis transversus, and all other gyri and sulci, they are without name. They are just called sulci gyri occipitalis, without localization of any function on superolateral surface. On temporal lobe, we can distinguish sulcus temporalis superior, sulcus temporalis inferior. By means lateral sylvian groove, it's separated from parietal and frontal lobe. On superior surface of gyrus temporalis superior, this gyrus temporalis medius, gyrus temporalis inferior. On superior surface here you can find gyrus temporalis transversi, transverse Hershey short, transverse Hershey gyri. Gyrus temporalis transversi Hershey. They are cortical end of auditory analyzer. The image of this center causes cortical deafness. Cortical deafness may be developed. Cortical auditory center. And on posterior part of superior temporal gyri, here we have sensory secondary auditory center lies here. On posterior part of gyrus temporalis superior, we have sensory auditory center. It is called center of the Wernicke, also center of the Wernicke, or sensory speech center. You can listen and understand what speak that. For example, my explanation, you can listen and understand. I hope that this center, Wernicke center, sensory aphasia, this is motor aphasia, Broca center, this sensory aphasia causes destroy of this center. Listen but don't understand and communication is destroyed. Yes, if listen, don't understand, it's very bad for patient. Sensory aphasia it is called. And insula, which by sulcus circularis separated, functions of insula islet, they're not yet known finally, fully, completely, but it is concerned that with the vegetative function, vegetative reaction in our body, vegetative function, centers are located in the insula. This is medial surface of the hemisphere. You can see corpus callosum, sulcus corporis callosi, which below continues sulcus hippocampi. Under the corpus callosum here lies this arc-shaped structure, fornix, with crura fornices, which end the structure of the brain. This is hippocampus. It lies in the thickness of the brain, and long-term or short-term memory connected with this very important structure, hippocampus, which belongs to limbic system. All part of the brain lies on medial surface. Above sulcus corporis callosi, we have gyrus, which bend like rim surrounds the corpus callosum. It is called gyrus cinguli. sulcus cinguli delimited, gyrus cinguli, which behind splenium corporis callosi becomes narrow, forms isthmus, and then continues with gyrus parahippocampalis and ended by hook-shaped gyrus. Uncus. Hook is uncus in Latin. Gyrus cinguli, isthmus, gyrus parahippocampalis and uncus together in arc-shaped, fornix-shaped manner they form gyrus fornicatus arnoldsi. You remember I say about olfactory brain, which depths into the hemisphere transplaced, which is very good developed animals, but for men it displaced in the thickness, and above is developed neocortex, neopallium. This belongs to olfactory brain, and cortical center of rhinencephalon olfactory brain is near the hippocampus, parahippocampal gyrus and uncus. On medial surface you can see also this gyrus frontalis superior, gyrus frontalis medius in frontal lobe, lobulus paracentralis. This lobulus paracentralis includes the precentral and postcentral gyri together. Gyrus precentralis and postcentralis on medial surface, they form lobulus paracentralis together. Lobulus paracentralis belong to cortical motor center. Then this sulcus cinguli continues on superior margin and form sulcus marginalis. Behind we have sulcus parietoccipitalis. This primary constant, this groove is called sulcus parietoccipitalis, which separates parietal lobulus from occipital. This sulcus cinguli continues as sulcus marginalis, this sulcus parietoccipitalis, and below we have sulcus subparietalis, this groove. We have quadrangular in shape, precuneus. This lobe is called in parietal lobe. On medial surface we have precuneus, because behind we have cuneiform, triangular in shape, cuneus. This is cuneus, this is precuneus. This precuneus, this is lobulus paracentralis, superior and medius frontal. Cuneus. And below this sulcus parietoccipitalis, this is calcarine groove. Sulcus calcarinus, primary, also primary groove. Parietoccipitalis, calcarinus, lateralis, and centralis. 4 primary constant grooves we have. Sulcus calcarinus, area 17, 18, 19, primary visual cortical center. On all boards of this groove, we have sulcus. On sides of this groove, we have cortical visual center in occipital lobe. On medial surface, we have cortical visual primary center. Damage, destroy of this center causes cortical blindness. Maybe eyeball function normally, all pathways. If the center is destroyed, for example, tumor, trauma on occipital region of the brain, very serious trauma, causes cortical blindness. Below we have this gyrus, which is called gyrus lingualis. This sulcus corporis callosi, parallel below of sulcus corporis callosi, gyrus parahippocampalis on medial surface delimited by sulcus collateralis. Collateralis groove, which anteriorly continues sulcus renalis, olfactory, sulcus renalis. This prefrontal area, subcallosal area, and sulcus renalis, they belong also to the limbic system. On inferior surface of hemisphere, you can see on inferior surface, here we have inferior surface in front. On medial surface, what lobe absent? We have frontal, parietal, occipital, no, partly temporal, but what absent? Insula. Insula is not visible. On inferior surface, we have frontal lobe, temporal and occipital. Parietal, insula, they are not here visible. Sulcus longitudinalis cerebri, yes, which separates and delimited lamina terminalis. Happy birthday to you. Some birthday, they celebrate. This is sulcus olfactorius. sulci and gyri orbitalis. Do you remember we are located this part of the brain on lamina orbitalis of frontal bone of the skull, above the orbits. That is why here we can see what grooves sulci orbitalis, what gyri, gyri orbitalis. On the stage of development of the skull, desmocranium, these grooves and gyri pressed on inner surface of the desmocranium, membranous cranium, and form on the inner surface of the cranium what structures? Impressiones digitate, impressions, and juga cerebrale. That's sulci et gyri orbitalis, sulcus olfactorius, in which lies this structure is called bulbus. This is tractus olfactorii. On this olfactory bulb are ended axons of olfactory neurosensory cells which lie in olfactory region of upper part of the nasal cavity. Here we have neurosensory cells. They are the first sensory neurons of olfactory analyzer in the nasal cavity. Their dendrite ended in mucosa. Their axons form first pair of the cranial nerves, pass through lamina cribrosa, ended on this olfactory bulb. Synapse form on the bipolar neurons of olfactory bulb. Their axon form olfactory tract, which go to the olfactory trigonum, and then stria form lateral, medial, intermediary, in the region of substantia perforata anterior, peripheral part of olfactory brain. Between sulcus olfactorius and longitudinalis, this gyrus is called gyrus rectus. What is this? Olfactory bulb. This olfactory tract. Then olfactory trigonum, lateral, stria medullaris, medial, intermediary. What substantia lies here? After removing perforata anterior, perforata, because so many vessels here, after removing of pia mater, what vessel is this? This is carotis interna, da? This, arteria carotis interna, cerebri anterior, communicans anterior vessels. And this is communicans posterior. And this is arteria basilaris, the basilar artery, which gives cerebri posterior. What circle lies here? Vilis cerebri, circulus, arteriosus cerebri vilisi. Vilis circle we supply here in hypothalamic region of the brain in subarachnoid space. This anterior cerebral artery supply. After removing of pia mater, you can see here many foramina in the brain matter. That is why it is called substantia perforata anterior. This substantia perforata anterior, together with optic chiasm, delimited the telencephalon. Next classes we will study diencephalon, separated telencephalon from, this is border between diencephalon and telencephalon on the base of the brain. On inferior surface of the temporal lobe, you can see this gyrus sulcus collateralis, and this groove goes from occipital to temporal. Sulcus occipito-temporalis, this collateral groove, which delimited parahippocampal and uncus, and this groove is called sulcus occipito-temporalis, separates lateral occipito-temporalis gyrus from medial, two gyri on inferior surface, lateral and medial. Sulcus collateralis, occipito-temporalis, lateral and medial occipito-temporal gyri. We can see on inferior surface. This inferior surface of temporal, frontal lobe, here we can see, and so on. And frontal and occipital lobes. This cortical centers on horizontal section, but not this section near to the upper part of the brain, near to the base of the brain. This is cranial, the upper part, this basal part, base of the brain. Near the base of the brain, if you will perform section, horizontal, like this section, this is cerebral gray matter, cortex, from 1 to 5 millimeters. This is white matter, yes? In white matter, we once more can find accumulation of the gray matter. What name they have? This cortex, this subcortex, but because of location to the base, near the base of the, they are called basal or subcortical nuclei or ganglia, synonyms. What is this? Cortex of insula, insular lies here, yes? This is cortex of insula, islet. Да? What body communicates both hemispheres? Corpus callosum. This anterior part of corpus callosum, forceps frontalis, here forceps occipitalis. This is nucleus caudatus. But what part of caudatus? It's head, caput. And about here will be cauda. It goes so. Cauda, which enters in upper part of the inferior, this ventricle, inferior horn of lateral ventricle. This is nucleus caudatus. What nucleus is this? Putamen and globus pallidus. What nucleus? Lentiformis. Nucleus lentiformis. Can you see? This is putamen and two pale globe, lateralis and medialis. Globus pallidus and putamen and nucleus caudatus. What is this? Palisade, claustrum. Yeah? And the fourth nucleus, you could not see on this section. You must perform specific section through the base of the temporal lobe on medial side. What nucleus inside here lie? Amygdala or amygdaloid nucleus, corpus. They are called basal ganglia, and nucleus caudatus and lentiformis consist of gray matter separated by means bimetal lamella. They have straight shape, corpus striatum, together from functional unit, striopallidar functional unit or corpus striatum. And between them we have white matter capsules. What capsule we have between cortex of insula and claustrum? What is this? Extrema. This is externa. This is interna. Interna capsule has angle shape. It has anterior crus, posterior crus, and genu capsula interna. Anterior crus lies between what nuclei? Caudatus, lentiformis. Posterior crus between lentiformis. This is thalamus, both thalamus. And genu lies caudatus and thalamus and lentiformis, this genu. And all projection fibers, which ascending, descending fibers, pass through these different parts. For example, corticonuclear pass through the genu, anterior frontothalamic tract, the frontopontine, they pass through anterior crus. Through the posterior pass, for example, acoustic, visual, central tract parts, radiatio acustica, radiatio optica. In the middle part pass thalamoparietal fibers, parietotemporooccipito-pontine fibers, corticospinal implant, and so on. Association fibers, they pass through the capsula extrema and between claustrum and islet. And here pass commissural fibers, the commissural fibers. Association through externa and more extreme. Association, for example, short and long. Projection pass here, upward, downward fibers. Connect the cerebral cortex with down-located nuclei of the brainstem and spinal cord. And commissural, they connect both hemispheres. This structure which lies, this corpus callosum on horizontal section, this corpus callosum on sagittal section. And under the corpus callosum we have arc-shaped structure. Do you remember the name of this structure from the lecture? What name has this structure? It is called fornix. Yes, fornix. Fornix in front consists of two columns. Here you can see two columns of the fornix. Between them I will open and you can try find these commissural fibers, this which goes between two fornix. You can see these transverse fibers. We'll stay behind. You can see these transverse small fibers. Arrow shows this. Can you see who behind?
No,
Why are you not so open?
Tell them to remove the iPads.
Can you see?
Is
This.
it, what is it? Hole.
Between two columns, this.
can see.
It is commissura anterior. Commissura anterior. And on posterior part where epiphysis lies, about here, we have commissura posterior, commissura anterior. And fornix, on the body fornix, lies commissura fornicis, lyra of David Lyra. Lyra is musical instrument on the fornix, also fornix which starts from the mammillary bodies on the base of the brain. We have this spherical in shape, corpora mammillaria, belong to olfactory brain, corpora mammillaria. From this corpora mammillaria starts two columnar fornices, and right and left olfactory tract connected through the commissura anterior. Then each fornix goes from in the center here, below the, about here, fornix forms corpus fornicis, which connected by means commissura fornicis, this corpus fornicis, and then each hemisphere receives one crus fornicis. Crus fornicis goes to the inferior temporal horn of the lateral ventricle and ended by this structure which lies in thickness. This is Ammon horn, or hippocampus, which lies here. This is hippocampus, this inferior horn. What does it mean, lateral ventricle? This remnant of cavity of the primary brain vesicle. This is lateral ventricle. It has shape of anterior horn, frontal horn. Below corpus callosum, this will be the central part of the lateral ventricle, central part. Then behind goes, what horn is this? In occipital horn, and goes downward and forms what horn? Temporal. It has frontal horn, occipital horn, temporal horn, and the central part which lies below, between corpus callosum above. Below this egg-shaped structure is thalamus. Between corpus callosum, thalamus, near the thalamus we have nucleus caudatus. This is thalamus, and this nucleus is nucleus caudatus. Nucleus caudatus caput, like great comma. It has caput, it has corpus, and it has tail. So goes tail about here. It lies above on superior wall of inferior horn of the lateral ventricle. Between two hemispheres, between fornix columns and corpus callosum, we have this lamina of the brain matter. It is called septum pellucidum, which belongs to paleocortex. The oldest part of the brain is renencephalon and this septum pellucidum, the paleocortex. Between two, this part is called septum pellucidum. This on section between fornix, here turn your attention, these fibers which go, this columnar fornicis. This is commissura anterior. It goes from one hemisphere to other, between two columns of the fornix. Between fornix and corpus callosum, here we have septum pellucidum. This is part of septum pellucidum. Separates anterior horn in one hemisphere from anterior horn in other. This is cavum septi pellucidi. Where lies the anterior horn? Between caput nucleo caudati, septum pellucidum, and what structure delimited? Below, in front, and above this anterior horn. What structure delimited? Below, in front, and above. What is this? Corpus callosum. Between nucleus caudatus, septum pellucidum, and corpus callosum lies anterior part, anterior frontal horn. The central part where is located? Above corpus callosum. What part? Truncus corporis callosi. In anterior horn, genium. In central part, above what structure lies? Truncus, its trunk. Below what structure lies? Thalamus, and not head, but corpus. And between them we have terminal groove. This groove separates. Caudatus belong to telencephalon, thalamus belong to diencephalon. This is flow of the central part. This is roof of the central part. On medial wall pass fornix. It in arc-shaped manner, fornix is removed. It goes so on medial part. The lateral wall is absent. Superior and inferior join at sharp angle. Then we'll go to the posterior horn. Posterior horn lies in occipital lobe. The white matter continues on lateral part of posterior. On medial side of posterior horn, we can two protrusions, parieto-occipital and calcarine groove protrudes into the posterior horn and form bulbus, bulb inside bulbus cornea occipitalis, and below calcar avis. Sulcus calcarinus forms calcar avis in posterior, and from below sulcus collateralis, this groove protruded and form eminentia collateralis, which continues in trigonum collaterale. Inferior horn, on medial wall, what structure lies? The hippocampus, remember, hippocampus, lateral wall and inferior wall is formed by white matter. Remember, between fornix and thalamus, we have, you will insert here a row. This is interventricular foramen of Monro. The choroid plexus, which lies here, produces fluid. Fluid flows all this, and through this opening between fornix and thalamus, through this opening, fluid passes between two thalami. We have foot ventricle. Fluid flows free, сюда, and then through aqueduct flows into the foreventricle. Foreventricle lies here, and then cisterna magna subarachnoid space. Все, my dears, finish everything.